All right. Good morning, ladies. Just addressing the ladies today. Here we are, Mother's Day. I remember probably over 15 years ago, previous church, a young lady came and talked to me. It must have been Mother's Day or Father's Day. I don't recall, but I do remember what she said. She came up to me again and said, "Pastor, I've caught on how it works. During Mother's Day, the sermons are usually meant to praise, to applause, to commemorate mothers. And then during Father's Day, all you guys do is critique, admonish, and challenge." And it dawned on me that is true. At least the trend that I was following. So I decided to change it up a bit. And today I will admonish, critique, challenge. No, I'm not. There is no way that I would ever do that. Partly because I know who runs the church. And by Tuesday, I'd have my pink slip to go with my pink shirt. But most importantly, it's because we do have a lot of themes regarding motherhood in the Bible, and God seems to utilize this idea very often, and usually He shines a very positive light upon motherhood. So I'm just following His trend. He must know best. So here again, we'll look at the topic or the theme of motherhood, but in a very praiseworthy light and perspective. We're going to utilize Isaiah chapter 66. So we're pausing this week from Daniel. And this is the last chapter of the very extensive book of Isaiah. Isaiah, a very well-known prophet. Kind of like Daniel in a sense, because he stuck around for a very long time, 3 to 4 kings, I think 4 kings, if I'm not mistaken, and situated in the southern kingdom. As we know, at one point in time, the kingdom was united. Eventually, there was 2 of them, Israel and Judah. By Isaiah's time, the northern kingdom had already fallen, and the southern kingdom was kind of heading in the same direction. We know that eventually it happened, because that's kind of what the book of Daniel is all about. But at the time of Isaiah, that had not occurred yet. And a lot of the content of Isaiah, aside from all the prophecies pertaining to Christ, there's a lot of that as well. But many things that he wrote about had to do with God, through Isaiah, trying to reach out to the Jews, to Judah, so that they would not eventually fall like the northern kingdom, although it did occur, and that didn't catch God by surprise. So there, along the book, you do have a lot of correction and a lot of prophecies pertaining to them making their ways right before the Lord. And inevitably, they were going to suffer, and God predicted that through Isaiah as well. And now, as we look at the last chapter of this prophetic book, the tone changes, and now God is focusing on providing comfort to His people. The readers of Isaiah already noticed that things were not going to go well, and God had, through Isaiah, prophesied that they would, in fact, be punished, unfortunately. But then towards the latter part, the end, there is this message of comfort. Basically, God letting His people know that even though they were going to suffer, that He would not allow them to completely perish, and eventually He would, in fact, redeem them. So here we have Isaiah 66. We'll take a look at verses 5 to verse 13. And I'll just read a couple of verses at a time, one or two verses, and then we'll pause and consider some things that are contained in those verses and move right along until we reach verse 13. So again, Isaiah chapter 66, just reading from verse 5. Hear the word of the Lord, you who tremble at his word. Your brethren who hated you, who has cast you out for my name's sake, said, let the Lord be glorified, that we may see your joy, but they shall be ashamed. So the immediate context here, who Isaiah 66 from verse 5 on is addressing, are these people, this faithful remnant. There were a lot of people that God was going to punish, and unfortunately, the good people were going to suffer as well, not necessarily by the hands of God, but they were being persecuted by their own brethren. We don't know exactly the historical period that this is addressing. There are certain things that have occurred in the past, and even, possibly things that will occur in the future that this might tie into. But regardless of the exact situation here, it was an era that certain Jews were thought worthy to be considered legitimate people of God. And this is who is being addressed here. And God, through Isaiah, is telling them, look, I understand. I know what is happening. But rest assured that even though you are being persecuted, even though you are suffering, and even though things may get worse in a short period of time, I have not forgotten you. And I will protect you. I will defend you. And they will be put to shame. Verse 6 states, the sound of the noise from the city, a voice from the temple, the voice of the Lord, who fully repays his enemies. Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came, she delivered a male child. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such a thing? Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children. So now we get to, start to see this analogy, this illustration of motherhood. Verse 6, basically, Isaiah notices that God is speaking, and God is about to have vengeance upon his enemies and upon the enemies of his people. And then, again, he starts talking about labor and birth. Verse 7, once more, before she was in labor, she gave birth. Now, ladies in the room, help me out here. I'm not an expert. I've been there multiple times. Some people claim that when their wife is pregnant, that they are pregnant. I've never stated that because I think that's foolishness. My wife has been pregnant several times. Some of the ladies in the room, even much more so. You know who you are. But here, there is a weird description. Once again, before she was in labor, she gave birth. How exactly is that how it works? Before labor, you give birth? So here, obviously, God is utilizing the analogy of motherhood and birth, but in a different way, in a symbolic way. The mother here, the one who is in labor, based on the immediate context of verse 7 and verse 8, is actually Zion. Now, what is Zion? Zion in the Bible, there are many definitions of that particular term. In essence, originally, it was just a mountain. It's much more of a hill than a mountain. The Bible tends to exaggerate. They call in seas little bodies of water and mountains when they're little hills. But it's a geographic location, basically the city of David. But eventually it came to point to Israel itself. And in a broader way, we also see sometimes God's people in general being called Zion. So here, the mother who is birthing a child is God's people, or the Israelites, specifically this faithful remnant that God is caring for. And the idea is this. Look, you are a small number of people compared to everyone else that is subjugating you to pain and to suffering and persecution. Yet, even though you are a small number of people, very few left that are truly faithful to God, again, the nation as a whole was going to be punished. Unfortunately, some within the nation did not deserve punishment, yet they were going to have to deal with it because of the consequence of the whole, of the entire nation that was straying away from God and His decrees. But God, again, focusing on this small remnant of people who are truly faithful, He is saying, you are going to be my true Zion, my true Israel, my people. And even though you are small in number right now, I will make you birth an entire nation to the point where you will exponentially grow in numbers. Much like a mother, hypothetically speaking, who doesn't even have to go through labor pains. Can you imagine, lady, how many kids you pop out during your lifetime? Again, some of you had one, a couple, too many, but I think most women would say, if not for the whole labor process, I'd probably have more kids, right? Is that a correct assessment? At least some others love pain, love discomfort, love the sweaty nights and whatever else happens to your body, during those 9 months. But quite a few ladies would have even more kids if they didn't have to go through labor pains, right? Just thank Eve for that. So God is saying, your numbers will increase. Once again, before she was in labor, she gave birth. She delivered a male child before her pain came. Who has heard such a thing? No one. Who has seen such a thing? No one. Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Can you imagine, ladies? In one day. Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children. God is saying, my people, my nation, will not only survive, but they will thrive. Once again, you are small in number now, those who are truly faithful. And it seems like things are going from bad to worse. You're going into captivity relatively soon. The identity of this nation will somewhat cease to exist, but you will not perish. Eventually, your numbers will increase like a mother who doesn't even have to go through labor pains, that can pop a kid out once a day, every day, and exponentially grow. So God is utilizing again the idea and the notion of motherhood for the purpose of encouraging those who were just there wondering if God had forgotten about them, if God didn't realize what was happening to them, if God didn't see the enemies that were not only countering them, but also doing so in the name of God. Isaiah goes on. Verse 9. Shall I bring to the time of birth and not cause it delivery? Says the Lord. Shall I, who cause delivery, shut up the womb? Says your God. So the illustration continues. God essentially is saying, I will finish the job that I started. All the way back in Genesis chapter 12, I promised someone, Abraham, that he would become a great nation. And we've gone through ups and downs. Many things have occurred since Father Abraham, but I started a process then, a process which I will finish. Because it would be insane. It would be crazy for me to stimulate, for me to instigate, for me to promote the birth of my nation and then stop when the water broke. Wouldn't you agree? I remember my wife, especially with the first child. We didn't know what was going on. By the third, he was out like in a half hour, literally half a push. But the first one, as usual, it's a little more challenging. Again, everything is new. Your body hasn't figured it out yet. I assume that's how it works. Anything you do over and over again, you get better at. That's all I'm saying. First time is a little harder, I assume. So, we read the books and we went to the doctor's appointments. We watched the documentaries, so on and so forth, right? So we knew sort of what to expect, but hadn't really lived through it. And as the days were getting closer to the date, the assumed date, which was, kind of hovering around Christmas. So she came a little earlier. False alarms started happening, right? Every once in a while, middle of the night, false alarm. Another one, false alarm, to the point, by the fourth false alarm, I'm not waking up anymore. Because again, the due date is like 2 weeks ahead. I've gone through these false alarms plenty of times, so I'm not even waking up anymore. Well, so happened that the next one was not a false alarm, yet I did not wake up in due time. I was there, but didn't want to be bothered because I figured, just go back to sleep. And then, felt the bed and was like, what is happening, woman? Drenched. Water broke. So, okay, it's happening. It's happening. First thing that pops to my head is, okay, let me call the doctor. And this is like, I don't know, like 2 o'clock in the morning. It was late. Maybe not that late. So I call the doctor. Actually, no, correcting the story. Water broke. We stayed the night until morning. And then I called the doctor in the morning and I explained to him, hey, water broke. Should we be on the way to the hospital? And he admonished me. He was this funny Indian guy. I'm not going to do the accent because I'm not very good at accents. But just imagine an Indian doctor admonishing you because you should have been, like, he was basically telling me, you should not be talking to me right now. You should have your wife in the hospital 5 hours ago. Anyways, get there 15 hours later, child is born. Fast forward through that portion of the story. But my point is, there is a point here. Wouldn't it be weird if she went through that whole process, water broke, and said, okay, I'm not having it. It's not coming out. I give up. Second thoughts? No. Once you start the process must be finished. Hopefully in, an appropriate amount of time, but it must be finished. And God here was saying, look, I started this process. And the nation has gone through a lot of labor pains. I do have a plan for my people. Do not be discouraged because it seems like things have gone awry. Half of you have, been taken into captivity and spread around. The other half of you are about to have the same fate. And it almost seems like I don't care about you anymore, and I'm having second thoughts, and I've quit or given up, and I'm going to do something else. No. I started this process. You are my people. You will thrive. My nation will be born, and they will be numerous. My people will be spread around the world, and they will grow, and they will thrive exponentially. Rest assured, I still have plans for you. And then he goes on to say on verse 10 and verse 11, rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad with her, all you who love her. Rejoice for joy with her, all you who mourn her, that you may feed and be satisfied with the consolation of her bosom, that you may drink deeply and be delighted with the abundance of her glory. Awkward. Do you notice the imagery here? So verse 10, basically it's a statement of, I have plans for my people and they will thrive. There are other people in the world that can be called my people as well, but here specifically, likely we're talking about the Jews. And in reference to the Jews, God, through Isaiah, is saying, if you honor them, if you bless them, if you help them, then you will partake in their blessing. I will bless you as well. Again, rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad with her, all you who love her. And then he added, rejoice for joy with her, all you whom mourn for her. In other words, those people who mourned for God's people, the Jews, when they were having, a hard time in the world, and we know history, and they've had a hard time. A lot of it due to, their own sins and ungodliness. But God is saying, those of you who love her and mourn for her, there will be a time that you will share in her joy. And now, verse 11, this is the awkward part, but the imagery is very clear, isn't it? A mother who has given birth. What happens with the little cabbage-looking baby? Taken away, but it comes right back. Why? That bonding experience, correct? The feeding. The mother has birthed, and now what is the mother? Sustenance. And that little parasite will attach to her mother and will not let go for the next year. more or less. But more or less for the next year, that's how that baby is soothed. Fed, but soothed as well. There is no place on earth that brings more comfort, more joy, this experience of safety and peace than the mother's bosom to her child. But again, God is adding, those of you, those of us who bless my nation and my people, mourn when they are suffering, and are happy when they are blessed, you will partake in this comfort. Almost like you are a visitor, right? How many ladies in the room like receiving visitors right after birth? It happens, but again, maybe shouldn't happen very often. Wait until you're home or whatever. But usually, or sometimes it happens. Think about a scenario where there you are, the mother, feeding your newborn child, and people circling around your bed. And then said child is removed from you and replaced by those people who are being soothed by. It's awkward, but don't blame me. Isaiah wrote this. God told Isaiah to write this. Not my fault. But again, the symbolism, the imagery is supposed to be powerful. It's supposed to have this shocking imagery in your head. We will be soothed and comforted, much like her child. God will bless those who bless them and will curse those who curse them. He will finish what he started. And it continues. The awkwardness ended right here. Now it's not awkward anymore. Verse 12. For thus says the Lord, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then you shall feed on her sides, shall you be carried, and be dandled on her knees. Basically, again, continuing this illustration of the blessing and the richness that will be provided to God's people, sort of like a river that is overflowing with treasures. And then, the trees and the flowers are growing. Everything is just lush and vibrant. This is the imagery that God is painting regarding his plans for his people and for those who bless his people. And on verse 13, this idea is closed and ended, but it's done so in an interesting way, because the thoughts and the topic and the idea of motherhood remains, but now Zion is no longer the mother. Who's the mother now? Now God is the mother. Look what it says. As one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you, and you shall be comforted in Jerusalem. So now again, God is being portrayed as a mother. Question, why? Because he wants them to understand the level of comfort that he provides to his people. And he chose to utilize the idea of motherhood so that people would understand this level of comfort. He could have said pillows, right? He could have said comfortable bed, hammock, but it does not resonate. Comfortable, yeah, but not as comfortable as a mother can provide her child. Out of all of the comfortable things that a human can experience, apparently God assessed that motherhood is at the top of the list. And here, superficially, you could say, well, God basically is being portrayed as a mother. Now, we all know, now I'll address the men in the room. God is manly, right? Yeah? Male, just like a male's male. First of all, it's God the Father. Jesus was very much man. Holy Spirit, kind of ambiguous, but, 2 out of 3. All right? 2 out of 3. But if we had to, assess a gender and give a gender to God, and you have those 2 options, and by the way, there are only 2 options, you would lean towards male, even though in a sense, God doesn't have a gender per se, but he is described and portrayed as a male, a man. But he's such a manly man, like me, that I have no problem wearing pink. God is such a manly man that he has no problem portraying himself as a mother, as a woman. He's very confident, extremely confident in his masculinity to the point where he has no problem. Why? Because this is the perfect analogy, symbolism. There's nothing else in the world that he could have used to give them the idea of what was to come. Everybody understands this in one way or another. The comfort that comes from mothers. However, this is just the superficial analysis. What is the superficial analysis? God is portraying himself as a mother. In other words, he is taking that quality and characteristic and applying it to himself. But actually, if you dive deeper, it's the opposite. Let me explain to you what I mean. God predates mothers. Wouldn't you agree? God was a thing before mothers were a thing. Is that a fair assessment of the chronology of events in human history? God was a thing before mothers were a thing. God is highlighting motherhood to describe himself. Agree? Good. What he's actually doing is establishing a truth that has always existed even prior to mothers being a thing. Understand so far? So far, so good? God was like this before mothers were a thing. Then mothers were created. And for whatever reason, God took that attribute that now we're calling being motherly, and he placed it upon them. So a part of who God is, a quality that is innate and inherent in God prior to mothers being a thing, existed in God for all of eternity, and he chose to have them share in his quality. So, in essence, what we're having here is not that God is like mothers, it's the opposite. It's mothers are like God. This comfort, not discomfort, this comfort that we see portrayed here is very known in the relationships that we're focusing on, namely mother-child. And the reason for that is that God gave mothers the ability to be like God in that sense. Which is why, circling back, I cannot and will not critique, admonish, or challenge motherhood. Because it's godliness. The idea of motherhood is innate in God. The comfort, the sustenance, the protection. It cannot be mimicked by anything else that we see in the world. And at an even higher level, in the most perfect way. It is part of who God is and how he is towards his children. Amen. Song first and then that.